All right, guys. So welcome all to this call regarding the homeowners insurance. I invited Candy Speck with State Farm to just go over tips and trends that she is seeing, questions maybe that she had been getting from clients. I do have a few questions that a couple people that couldn't make it today, they actually emailed me and wanted me to go over for them. So feel free to unmute yourself as Candy goes over this and ask any questions that you might have, whether that be based off your policy or just general questions. And then at the end, we can also go over more questions as well. So with that, Candy, take it away.
Okay, thank you very much, Angie. I really appreciate this opportunity. I know that having a discussion about homeowners insurance is probably not the most exciting topic in your life today, but hopefully it'll bring some value to you. I know I've been having a lot of reviews with customers lately and just bringing up some little tips and tricks and things just kind of to be top of mind. It doesn't always hurt. So I do appreciate you guys giving me your maybe 45 minutes of your time. I've been in the insurance industry since 2007, and I have been with State Farm now for 5 years here in Omaha. So kind of seen a lot of different things throughout the years and different weather patterns that have caused some um, changes in the way we work through the insurance situation for folks. But so hopefully I can kind of bring to light some good takeaways for you. Let me see if I can advance this. Sorry. All right. I first just want to start out very broad, just kind of going through the components of a policy. I know a lot of you guys probably already know this, but again, I don't think it hurts to kind of have some of this information just as a basis. So basically, your component, of course, is your home itself, the dwelling. Then we go to other structures. So anything that's detached, that could be a fence, that could be a pool, that could be a shed, things of that nature. Personal property, that would be anything inside your home. And I liken that to if you took the roof off your house and you dumped it upside down, whatever would fall out would be your personal property. So that's the best picture I can paint of personal property. Loss of use is important because if you had to live somewhere else because of a tragic event such as a tornado or fire, then it would pay for you to live elsewhere while the home was being rebuilt or repaired. And then, of course, you have your liability and medical payments. The medical payments is just, injuries, someone if they were at your home. But and then everything else, would kind of come above into the personal liability portion too. So that's just a quick overview on that piece. And at the end too, I have my information. If you have any questions at all, obviously you do not have to be a customer or anything to just ask simple questions. That's fine. I'm also really good with you guys just being interactive. If you have a question in the middle of a slide, just come off mute and go ahead and just let me know what questions you might have because I'm happy to address that right away while you're thinking of it. Just wanted to talk through the current environment, kind of where we are, and kind of specific to Nebraska. I mean, we can talk broadly of, fires in California, hurricanes in Florida, things of that nature, but I'm going to speak a little bit more just to, what's happening locally here. Pretty much every year I've been an insurance agent, there has been a hail event in one part of Nebraska or another, or several within 1 year's time span. So that's pretty prevalent anymore. Obviously, the cost of labor and materials have really risen. I know after COVID, they really skyrocketed and they were pretty out of hand. They have leveled out a little bit, but still haven't gotten back to what that pricing looked like pre-COVID. Our market value has increased considerably. It's a tight market to find a house in, especially in Omaha. So we're seeing that. And then our tightened economy means more utilization of the insurance policies where, you know, homeowners used to maybe just take care of some of the needs themselves and just paid out of pocket. But now, with the kind of environment we're living in where everything is getting to be more and more expensive, then they are utilizing maybe their insurance policies a little bit more often than they might have before on maybe smaller events. So that's kind of changed some of the environment as well. We're going to go into probably what everybody is seeing. Really, no matter what company you're with right now, is year over year, we're seeing increases on homeowners policies. Just a quick rundown on how that happens is, you know, I get a lot of people saying, but I didn't have a claim, you know, I didn't get a new roof. And you share when you are buying your insurance, no matter what company you're in, you are with, I should say, you share in that insurance. So it's all a pool so that when you do have that roof replacement, siding replacement, you know, $25,000 claim, then, you know, that's where we gather the money from in that event. And so that can cause a statewide increase. And we do go by state. Now, obviously, overall, throughout the country, it can have a little bit to do with some increases. But for us, we really do look at our losses in the state of Nebraska when filing, because every state is different. And we do have to file those rates with the state year over year. And that's why really your insurance is not a negotiated type of situation. Of course, filing a claim can cause a policy-specific increase. Now, that being said, too, it might be if you file a claim and there isn't even a payout, that can make a difference as well. So those are things you want to be mindful of, and we'll kind of talk about that a little bit later. Every year, your home, we do inflate the cost of replacement on the home. And for us, it's about a clip of about 3%, and that's pretty normal for other companies as well. So every time we're trying to keep pace with inflation and making sure that, you know, your house that you bought 10 years ago is being covered for what it's worth today to rebuild. Insurance score is another piece, and this is probably one that people don't know as much about, but it is loosely based on your credit. It is also based on just open accounts. Like, let's say you have your, you know, your regular credit card that you use, that you built credit on. You know, you don't want that to go away. You want to keep that. But like, let's say you have a Home Depot card and a Von Maur card, and maybe because you do have good credit, you have a nice available amount of credit line there, even though it's not being utilized, there's no balance. That actually can adversely affect your insurance ratings. So things of that nature, I tell people to maybe look at too. There's not quite a science to it or end all be all, but I do tell people you never want to close out an account that you've built credit on. However, if you do have those open accounts lying out there and just maybe even didn't realize it, you know, it's probably good to close them out or to lower the available credit on those cards. The other thing can be the claims. So utilizing claims can affect the insurance score as well. The other piece is stockholders. Right now, you know, we're seeing an environment where the stockholders for some companies are really, you know, begging for increases. The difference is there's stock companies and then there are mutually held companies. State Farm, for instance, is a mutually held company, so our policyholders are owners, whereas the control for other companies are within those stockholders. And so that can make a difference as well. Any quick questions, Wally? Here are just a couple ways to maybe decrease your premium. In these reviews, I've uncovered that folks have already replaced their roof and got a hold of their roofing company, and they put on impact resistant shingles. If you are looking to, you know, if there's a hailstorm here coming up and you do need a new roof, I would definitely urge you to look into that upgrade because it's a nice premium decrease for you. So if you can do that, plus maybe, keeping you from another claim, of course, and having the deductible payout and just time and energy spent on replacing your roof. A burglar and fire alarm, those are if they are reporting to a central station, blink camera, ring camera. We don't accept. I'm not sure about every company on that, quite honestly. So probably a good thing to ask in your reviews as well. And then double check that replacement cost because sometimes that inflates a little too much over time. I had some people who they looked at the replacement costs on their house right about that time, right after COVID, where everything just, 2x4s were exorbitant and the plywood and whatnot. And so we did increase that replacement cost at that time. And now our replacement cost calculator will bring that down a little bit to real costs. So those are always good things to double check in your reviews. The other thing you can do is increase your deductible. So if you have a pretty low deductible, if you're not one to claim very often, you might as well save your premium. You kind of want to look at, where's the break even there, of course, but always good to look at that a little bit too, because that can make a large difference in your premium annually. And we'll kind of touch on this later on in the trends, but the increasing your deductible might not be an option for you. It might be required by some companies moving to a different deductible.
Andy,
Yes, ma'am.
we had a question come through the chat.
Okay.
Is how often, like going back to the credit score piece of it, how often do insurance companies assess the credit score? Like if you already have a policy?
Yep, that's a great question. I find it's about every 3 years.
Okay.
And again, I can't, I'm doing this kind of in generality, so I can't speak to every single customer or every single company, excuse me. But yeah, ours is about every 3 years.
And do they just do a soft poll like behind the scenes? Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
point.
so you wouldn't see it as a hard inquiry that would affect your credit.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And that's
Perfect.
very important too.
Perfect.
Yeah, great question. I'm going to move on to the trends. So here are some of the trends in general, not State Farm specific again, but here are some of the things that I'm seeing, that we're seeing overall, that we talk about on a regular basis. The different carriers are adding maybe a different wind and hail deductible that is larger than your current deductible, or they're just adding a larger flat deductible. The days of a $500 deductible for a homeowner policy are probably pretty much gone. And some of those companies I know who have had those low deductibles, their deductibles have gone up quite a bit to, be maybe a percentage or whatnot. We can go to a 0.5% deductible here at State Farm, but we have, the different availabilities. I think we can do a flat $2,500 deductible or 1% as well, but nothing lower than 1,000 total. So,
Katie, on the deductible, I think a lot of agents do point that out to people. I had one the other day where they were switching insurance companies, and I asked the customer if they knew that their wind and hail deductible was so much higher than their regular deductible. I think it was like 2% or 6,500 or whatever that number was. And they were not aware that it was going to be different. So I think that's a great thing to point out because, if not all agents point that out to people, they could have a shock when a storm comes through Nebraska for sure.
Yeah. And that's such a good point too, because it's obvious that your most common claim and the most common reason to use your homeowner's insurance is wind or hail. And and of course, in the state of Nebraska, that's common, the most common. But those deductibles, that has been, kind of one of those things. And I'm noticing that for folks when they're renewing, maybe that's changing and it's not really pointed out or not terribly clear. So you definitely want to be mindful of those deductibles, because in a time of that claim, like Angie said, you you don't want that kind of surprise. Another one that is big at the time of the claim that would be a big surprise is not covering the soft metals, um, in an effort to save cost for insurance companies. Um, they are looking at the soft metals as a cosmetic type of fix or replacement, and so they're not covering something that's cosmetic. And that would include like your hail dents on gutters and the vents on the roof. So that's important to understand too. I talked earlier about small claims and how people are maybe claiming a little bit more often because of the tight economy. Well, that's where renewals are being scrutinized. When someone has several claims in a couple of years or within the last 3 years, they might look at that and decide if they want to renew that policy or not, because it's not always a guarantee that your policy will be renewed. So that's another factor too. Um, and then one of the biggest things is, quite honestly, when it comes to a homeowner claim, for us, and I can probably speak for really any company in Nebraska, we are paying out in claims more than we're bringing in premium. And we know this. That's part of homeowners insurance here in Nebraska, but that's why the bundling is incentivized. We want to try to see if we can bundle in anything we can do to help somebody with their auto insurance, their life insurance, things of that nature, so that you're getting the best deal overall, and have one company to deal with too, which makes sense. So. Anything on that? I'll pause before I move over to claims. All right. So, big topic is claims. And here's where, if I can give you any kind of takeaways, I'm hoping it'll be here. One of the biggest things anymore is that when a storm comes through, you're going to probably have a roofer or roofing company set up signs, knock on your door, come let you know that the neighbor's house had damage, you had damage, or you probably have damage too, things of that nature. Before you even submit a claim, my advice to you is to first consult with your agent and your contractor. Obviously, you can use whomever you know and trust, but I would make sure it is somebody know or trust, or it's someone recommended. Usually, your agent will have several different roofers that they would recommend. That way, they can look at it and know if it is worth filing a claim before you file. Because what happens is, in order to get an adjuster out, you have to file that claim. And if that comes out as a zero payout claim because there wasn't enough damage, then that is on your record. That's on your record too when you're looking at maybe switching insurance companies. They will look at how often someone will submit a claim. And so even if there's small payouts, no payouts, that could affect, what those quotes could look like. It could affect your renewal, things of that nature. So definitely make sure you have a claim. You have to get a contractor anyway. I always tell my customers if there is damage. So might as well have them come out. They will do it for free. Now, once they do say it makes sense to go ahead and file a claim, I always think a claim will go much smoother if you can have the roofer and the adjuster meet there at the same time. Most contractors would ask for that to happen as well. So I just feel like if they're seeing the same things, if one's seeing something different than the other, maybe they can get on the same page right then and there, rather than, okay, we need to go back and forth with sending photos and whatnot. And again, like I said, you choose the roofer. They don't choose you. So, we've had a couple from that big storm back in the end of July on that very, very hot day, where I had a roofing company come through and they were saying, hey, you have hail damage, and I think you should file a claim. And now coming out, especially with a second check with another roofing company, where they are saying there's really not enough damage. That hailstorm had big hail, but it was so hot that hail on the inside was kind of mush, and did not see the damage that people were expecting it to be. So that's a big factor. You want to have those people who are you can have confidence in and know that what they're telling you is accurate. Now, especially when you're talking like a water situation, one of the biggest things that you can do is, protect your home. So mitigate any kind of damage that you can. If there's a hole in the roof or something like that, we wouldn't tell you to go out in a lightning storm necessarily and put a tarp up, but call a company, have them come out, save all your receipts, because that would be covered then too. But try to do what you can to keep things from getting worse than they need to be. We'll talk about this in some tips, but know where your shutoff valves are, know where your electrical shutoff is, things of that nature. Have your, if you have older kids who are old enough to stay at home by themselves, show them that information, show them where that is, and so that'll help maybe mitigate some damage as well. One of the things that we kind of talk about is, your maintenance versus claim, and what we really come in, the way I describe it when a customer says, okay, is this situation a claim? I always tell them it has to be an event. There has to be something, either a storm or a pipe burst or something. And the key word there is sudden and abrupt. So if there is something sudden and abrupt that happened in your house, then yes, that would make sense to have a claim. I had someone whose toilet was just leaking, and they didn't really know it for a while until they saw that through the basement ceiling. That unfortunately is a maintenance thing. It's a slow leak and not necessarily covered. So you want to kind of make sure those claims would be approved too. The other thing that's big too, and Angie will appreciate this, is that if you do have a claim that's pretty large, and for instance, like a roof replacement is obviously the most common, so I use that example a lot. But when you receive the claim check, it's made payable to both parties. So it's made payable to you and your mortgage company. And a lot of people question that, but they are an interested party. That's why they're listed on your policy, to, number one, make sure you continually have insurance, but also so that if there is a claim, they can make sure you're doing the repairs too. And so, yes, they do have to endorse that check. And it is possible. I've done it myself, where I had a company where I had to send it in the mail with a self-addressed stamped envelope. And but my biggest advice with that is call them and just ask what their procedure is, because they do have a procedure and they usually have a department specific to this. Now, if you're lucky enough to be with a local bank, usually they can endorse it in, locally, but that's not always a luxury. Anything on that? All right, sailing through. All right.
Candy, I have a question for you. So for the water, like if you had water backup or sewer backup in your basement, I think that's one of the most common questions, or a common question that we get. Your home, correct me if I'm wrong, but your homeowners and policy would not necessarily cover that unless there was a rider, correct? Like you have to add that separately to your policy. Is that right?
Yeah. Actually, that's part of my tips here. So
okay.
it's like we rehearsed this, but we didn't.
Okay. Okay.
that's a perfect question to segue here. One of the tips I have here is to make sure that you do have that as an endorsement, because it is not something that is on every policy, just on the base policy. It is that endorsement. And so I always tell people, if you have a sump pump, um, and really, regardless if you have a sump pump or not, I like this endorsement and I try to put it on everyone and explain it. But yes, if you have a sump pump that malfunctions, that is only covered if you have this endorsement. And if there is a sewer backup that comes through your drain, toilets, whatnot, then this coverage would be through the endorsement as well. So make sure your policy has that. Make sure your policy has adequate coverage for that too, because it can be in different percentages. So that is a little bit different. Yeah, there are some of those different endorsements too. One other one, and I don't necessarily have it on this slide, but one other one that has been real prevalent lately, I think, is because some of the utilities are sending out some coverage for this as well. But anything from the street to your home, all the pipes that run through are your responsibility. And so there are sometimes endorsements on your homeowner's policy that would cover all lines. Now, I want to say MUD sends those out, I think. Now, that would only cover the MUD lines, for instance. So, kind of understand what you have there and what you need. The biggest culprit there is the big tree roots. So if you have maybe an older home or big trees in the front yard, and those sometimes can end up harming those pipes that are going from the street to the house. So another thing is that in all of my reviews lately that I have been talking to people about is take your camera on your phone and just video your belongings, because on a good day, I'm not going to remember what I own. I won't know every Christmas decoration, every piece of clothing, every bedding that I own, let alone during a time of a fire, death, tornado, where, emotions would change that a little bit, in my opinion. And so being able to video and recall would be super helpful, and you'll be super glad you did it. I also tell people, collectibles, that's a really good time to do that as well, because, you can't always prove that you had these collectibles. I always use the example of golf clubs, because I had a customer whose golf clubs were stolen out of his garage, and we asked, okay, and this was my former company, but I think any company would do it, especially now, is, what all did you have? Because you can have different woods to different irons to different putter, and I use that example, and I know not everybody's a golfer, but it could be the same for any kind of your collectibles, right? So I think that's pretty important too. Hard to find items too. Then again, while insurance is not the best topic and not fun, I do urge people to review with their agent on a regular basis. Every year, year and a half, 2 years, whatnot, because so much has changed. The environment has changed considerably in the last 4 years. Um, it, it's just I've been in insurance, for what is it now, 17 years, and the environment right now is definitely a very different environment than I once knew. So I think that's always healthy, to have that review, know that you're good on your replacement cost, and know what you have. you know um, the other thing too is sometimes your policy limits won't cover all of your items, like jewelry, computers. It may have a limited coverage. Plus, it's subject to deductible. Plus, there are different types of coverage. So when you schedule, for instance, jewelry, and you lose a piece on vacation, mysterious loss is not covered on your homeowner's policy, whereas it is if you have it scheduled. You do have to provide receipts or appraisals, things of that nature, but understand that too. If you have added some nice pieces to your collection, or you have a kid at college with a computer, those are some very inexpensive way to cover that without even being subject to a deductible at all. Lastly, if you don't already have an umbrella policy, a personal liability umbrella policy, I recommend that pretty much to anyone who has equity in their home, because we're not talking necessarily about automobiles right now and vehicle coverage, because that's a whole other 45 minutes at least. But your umbrella policy covers an added, for instance, million or 2 million. You can kind of decide where you need it to be, but it adds another layer of liability coverage over your home and your cars, which is a moving risk at all times, and your assets are at risk then. Whenever you if you have some kind of an accident, let's say, and are at fault, then your any kind of savings accounts, the home equity, things of that nature, could could kind of be taken away if you don't have the proper liability coverage. So I always just think anybody who owns a home, it's very inexpensive. It's probably less than a cup of coffee per month to add that for you. So, and then that is pretty much my tidbits. Of course, my contact information, just in case you have any other questions or want to consult. I'm one of those people that I am so happy to help people. I'm kind of just really centered in customer service, and so if anybody has a question or just wants to run something by me, by all means, give me a call or send me an email. Be happy to help.
Awesome, Candy. And one of the questions that actually came in this morning from someone that could not make it was around that umbrella policy. And yeah, so I'm glad you addressed that, because he wanted to know, if he already has homeowners insurance, what does that cover? And, does he really need that? So I thought that was great that you already had that in your presentation.
Oh, cool. Yeah. And just to kind of reiterate, I guess, you already have that homeowner's insurance, and those liability limits can vary on the homeowners, anywhere from $100,000 to $300,000. But what's nice about that umbrella policy is it does cover auto and home. So a couple of examples where we've used the umbrella policy for a home, though, would be a trampoline incident, a dog bite. We don't have a specification on any kind of dog breeds that we would not insure, but there are companies who do specify. So those items would come into play. But of course, then I think vehicles are probably your largest risk when it comes to that. But the home sometimes might not quite have the liability that would cover your assets as well. So.
Yeah, that's great. I think this was such helpful information from me, and I just want to make sure that everyone has a chance to ask any questions that you might have. So feel free to take yourself off mute and ask questions.
William Horton here. Hey, got a quick question. And it's kind of insurance related, but it's also kind of tax related for us being in Omaha. When can we kind of expect these changes to hit our escrow, or for escrow review? And when will be expecting that to kind of hit our pocketbooks down?
Yeah.
That's
I can just speak from when your insurance renews, it doesn't hit your payment in your escrow account automatically. So with First National, your escrow account is audited once a year. That is at the end of March, and you get a letter from us the end of April. And it'll let you know if your escrow account is short or if there's too much in it, they send you a check back. If there is a shortage, you do have the option to pay that shortage. It does not specify that in the letter. That letter is regulated, but it does not specify that in the letter. You can pay the shortage as a one lump sum. And if you pay that shortage, then your payment will only go up the amount of the true taxes and insurance. Those payment changes take into effect June 1st of every year in Douglas and Sarpy County in Nebraska. Pottawatomie County, I think that happens. I can't 100% guarantee it, but I think that happens later on in the year. So might not be in April. I would have to check in on that. So, okay, great, Terry. Yeah, I think I was pretty sure it was the end, closer to the end of the year. But yeah, so those things take effect in Douglas and Sarpy County on June 1st. And if you get your letter, when you get that letter, the end of April, I actually might have another Zoom call, to be quite honest with you, on that, because so many people call in and have that same exact question. So I might have a Zoom call that first week of May just to go over that. But if there is any questions when you get that letter, feel free to reach out to me. We get a ton of questions at that time, so no big deal. We can go over that.
And if it's okay that I kind of jump in too, I might have to put that on my tips too for you, because that's such a good point, because I have so many people who they realize that their premium increased so much, and that's why they're looking, so they come to me to quote them, but they'll tell me, oh, it was 6 months ago that this went up, and I didn't realize it until my escrow company told me I was short. And so that's why it's so important to take a look at those renewals. Some people just disregard them when they come in the mail because they're like, oh, the escrow takes care of that anyway. I don't have to pay it. It's fine. But you might want to kind of know what your payment is looking like, or what that premium looks like, and kind of keep track of that too. So that's an awesome question.
The other thing I think Candy went over a little bit is if you do have a claim and that check is made payable to both you and the bank, one good thing about having your loan at First National is you deal with everybody in town to get that check signed off. Where if your loan is serviced out of state, then you have to mail stuff to their servicer, wherever that ends up being, and wait to get that information back. So one good thing about First National is our servicing department. A lot of it can be done within our branches, but it's all here locally. So you're dealing with local people on the phone, and you can always call me and I can start that process with you as well. So that's just a little different than other places, just because everything's here locally in town.
Yeah, shortens that process quite a bit.
It does, for sure. Yeah. Any other questions?
I just had a quick question and kind of a follow-up. I asked earlier, I was the one that asked about the when insurance rates are assessed. When I'm assuming if insurance doesn't change and you have the same insurance company, but you go through a refinance, there's a credit check done at that point of refinance to establish the new payment schedule, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Thanks.
So, and you're talking from the insurance standpoint as well, or you're just talking?
Yes, correct. That's correct.
Okay. So we don't automatically rerun an insurance score at that time. No, it would still be at, kind of on the 3-year pace. So
if the parties change, like the title changes from 2 people to 1 person, you don't necessarily revise the credit check?
So if you do, so you're adding somebody to the policy?
Taking away.
Okay. So then it probably would, you're right.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so if changes to so changes to the folks involved on the policy, then that could trigger it as well. Yes, absolutely.
Great. Any other questions today, guys? If not, Candy has her information. So if you wanted to ask more personal questions or maybe compare policies, you can always reach out to her. She's very helpful with clients and answering my questions too when I have them. So if you guys don't have my number, still 602-5189. Our email addresses did change this year. Instead of being at fnni.com, it's at fnbo.com. So just so that you have that, A. Brookhauser at fnbo.com. But feel free to reach out to me, you guys, with any questions that you might have, even if it's not mortgage related, banking wise, I can help answer those too. All right.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, Angie.
Thank you guys for attending. Have a great day.
Have a good day.